So I know the topic is low-cost marketing, but I want to put something in your head. The best marketing that you can have for your business actually costs you nothing. Nothing at all. Zero. I know that sometimes money for fat, like I'm in the medium, so I'm not selling anything, right? And I know you can go to a lot of places and they're like, well, you need this marketing software, this approach, and then it actually costs you nothing.
And I think this is the biggest mistake people do when it comes to marketing. They don't know who they're marketing to. Social media has killed us, right? Because it's everywhere. Think about it, right? I've got however many thousand followers on Twitter. You put something out on the internet and there's tons of people who can see it, right? So we think that if we put out a really good post on our own personal blog, that we throw it out there and the world can see it. Well, first of all, the world can't find it because nobody's looking for it because they don't know or care about it. Secondly, they're not the right audience. I always tell people, if social media marketing is your marketing, you have no marketing, right? Just because you have a Twitter handle, I have a very good friend who's a wonderful realtor in Florida, fantastic woman. And she called me up so proud because she got her Twitter handle and she started tweeting out. And I said, well, how many followers do you have? She goes, I'm up to 10. I said, do you know any of them? She's like, yeah, they're all my friends. Well, guess what? They're not buying in Florida. I said to her, and I said, so what was your Twitter handle? It was like, whatever, her name, realtor, right? I said, well, what's your market? She's like, well, I want to represent people down here. She used to own a brokerage in Long Island here. So the people who are from Long Island who are buying in South Florida. Big market, right? Huge market. I go to South Florida, I feel like I'm in Jericho, right? Constantly. I said, so how are you doing this like Twitter thing? What story are you telling? She's like, well, I'm telling people how great Florida is. Well, who are you telling it to? People in Florida, they know how great it is, right? How are you reaching Long Island? Great market, great idea, but why was that not your focus? Why was that not your focus in how you positioned it? And so I looked at her materials and all, and what she was putting out was okay. It was your typical realtor thing. Any realtors here, real estate people? Good. I'm sorry. It's a wonderful business. I've just never really met anybody good in it yet. But they tell the same story. Like, this is wonderful, right? They'll show you a shack and they tell you it's a mansion, right? And that's what she does. Except she tells you it's a mansion and tells you, makes it seem like a bigger mansion, right? Because it's Boca. I said, what about your personal story? You owned a business on Long Island. It was very successful. You were bringing people from Long Island down to Florida. You were licensed in both places. You decided to make your home here because you thought, why, right? And she talked about how she felt it was a more vibrant economy, the housing market was recovering. I said, all these wonderful things. Tell the story. So she started doing that. And I said, stay off Twitter. Whatever you do, stay off Twitter. Because she was also one of those people who mixed her Twitter life with her private life. So it's like, here's the houses you should buy in this country club, and isn't this dog cute, right? And there's something to be said for the personalization, but she was missing the point. I said, you need to do, start contacting people directly, looking for people. Use all your old contacts in Long Island and send them an email. She's like, well, nobody does that anymore because there's all these fancier things, right? I said, how about this? Send them notes. How do you handwrite notes? Pay for the postage, spring, right? She started getting business. The business that she wanted. So it was a question of telling her what story to tell, and then figuring out who needed to hear it. And it's simple. I'm not a genius, clearly, right? But so many businesses fail at this. They tell the wrong story. They try to sell. People don't like being sold to. They like hearing stories. We can subtly tell people stories. We can tell them about our experiences and hope that they like us, right? But we live in a Tinder world, right? Particularly, it's not just dating. It's with business. It doesn't take long for them to swipe left on all your businesses. They don't care, right? Because there's other options that they have. So it comes down to making yourself and your business likable, making your business something that they can relate to, telling that story, trying to build that connection. And it also comes down to then using the customers you have to do it for you, because they're the best. They're your best marketers. You can hire tons of salespeople and they can be out. You can spend a lot of money on marketing and all these other things. If your customers don't like you, you're dead. Look at the restaurant. Anyone in the restaurant business here? Fascinating the way content's changed in the restaurant business. And it's a perfect example. It's happening everywhere, but we see it more with restaurants. It used to be that restaurants spent a lot of time and money on getting menus in front of people. Right? Chinese restaurants are the best. I get a menu from the same Chinese restaurant every week. Never ordered them, but they drop it off. They still do, right? Even the bigger restaurants would do deals, and then when the internet happened and social media happened, they tried to do, marketing to their best customers, and that worked to some degree. And then when it came to trying to get third-party validation, they went to the press, right? Here in New York, the best thing to do would be to get a New York Times review, right, of a restaurant. That was the be all and end all. None of that matters anymore. Why do people pick restaurants to go to? What? Referrals from friends, but also referrals from strangers. It's Yelp, right? And so I just spoke at a restaurant group here in Javits a couple of months ago, where people were still spending money on marketing to a bunch of people they thought might be their customers, and ignoring what the people who actually ate at that restaurant and were commenting on Yelp and things like that were doing there. Yelp gives you data, right? It's not as great data as you'd like, but Yelp gives you data to make decisions. So restaurants that are successful are sort of managing the people who cared enough about the meal, whether they liked it or not, to start a dialogue, right? How much does that cost? It costs time, but does it cost money? No. You can do it today. And it's not just restaurants, because again, you've got a lot of social media platforms where customers discuss. And companies to this day are still afraid of that. They're still petrified of that. They don't engage, or they fight, and they make fools of themselves, right? I mean, here's the thing. I should have started by saying this, because every speech I give, I start by saying, I know you guys. If you're entrepreneurial, if you started your own business, I know you. You're all nuts. You're all crazy. You're intense. You're driven. Because there's companies that would probably pay you to work 9 to 5 and give you a nice regular check, but you're crazy enough to say no. And back to the restaurant business, I met a guy who owns a restaurant. He could make more as a manager of a restaurant somewhere else, but wanted to own it himself. There's something wrong with you, right? But that's what makes you great. That's what makes you fabulous, because you have that drive. You want to solve people's problems, and you want to do it on your own terms. I get that. But when you engage with customers often, the biggest flaw you have is that you get your back up. When people say something like, your burgers were terrible, your answer is, no, they weren't. I love them. Right? Whereas if you actually worked for another company, like you work for McDonald's, they say this burger is terrible, you'd either say, yeah, I know it's McDonald's, or you would probably say, how do I fix that? Because it's not, you didn't invent the burger, but you invented your business. And it's worse when your business is you, right? When you're the business, when you're selling yourself and somebody has a criticism, we take it personally. But when we take it personally, we're missing the cheapest way to get somebody who'll go out and market for us, right? So, a couple of things. Tell your story. Learn how to tell your story. Put it in front of the right people. Make sure that your market is correct, that you're telling that story to the right people. And lastly, get those people to keep telling your story. There's nothing wrong when you have a good customer in writing a glowing recommendation for yourself to that customer to post and use. So if if Ramon likes this speech, I'll write and I know he'll love it already, but and I'm in the speech business, I'll say, if you don't mind, I wrote a recommendation from you about me. Ray Hennessey was wonderful, fabulous, handsome, we were so lucky to have him, right? Signed, Ramon Ray. Can I use this? And he'll look at it and say, sure. He doesn't have to do anything, and he likes it.
And Ray, I have to admit,
Yeah.
and to say, I think one of the reasons is people are busy. Like you, I'm asked it often. I don't have the time to think. I love the person, but when I get those, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll save it for months, and I have to like myself.
This other friend of mine also now does it with tweets. He sends out tweet text. Can you please tweet this? They cut, paste, tweet, done.
Yeah.
Right? How much did all that cost you? Here's the problem, and I'll sum it up because I know we have questions there. We get so caught up in the technology that's in front of us and the potential that we hear about things happening that we forget that there's no such thing as a national business, right? All business is local, right? There's no such thing as worldwide business. All business is local. We may sell in different markets, but we sell locally in all those markets. And before the internet, and before these digital capabilities, and before all these things, we knew that. Because we had a store, and our customers lived around that store, right? Or we had a town and multiple stores, and we did that. Or we had a client base that was local, we knew that. And we had that interaction, we had that personal connection to them. They wanted to know our story, and it was natural for us to just tell it because we had that personal interaction with them. Now, because we can reach millions of people, by the way, none of whom are going to buy our product, but we can reach millions of people, we've gotten impersonal. And the good news for everybody in this room is I'm not going to tell the people outside that I told you little tricks, right? You have now a competitive advantage. Be personal. Tell your story, right? Find the right market. Cultivate your customers. Don't fight with them. Use them as your best marketing tool. That costs you nothing. Zero. And it works. It works on the small scale, it works on the large scale, and it gives you that competitive advantage that other people don't have because they're not doing it. Questions? Yes?
And just, I want to say, when you give your question, if you just remember two things that you guys heard me say all day. One, don't give Ray advice. Two, ask the question shortly so he can answer, we can all learn.
And if I tell you I don't like your burgers, don't argue. Yes?
When you say to cultivate your customers,
Yes.
if you're not a restaurant, any thoughts or suggestions?
Well, every business, it works for every business. It's just the way that you do it, right? So there are message boards, there's online communities that talk about your industry and your business right now. So you need to be active and engaged in that. Best example of this is the wedding business, okay? If you go on the knot.com, which is that community for wedding business, they rate every provider. And the providers who do well are the providers that you see interacting. They're apologizing for bad service in some ways. They're trying to explain themselves. They're getting more of their friends in discussions. When people ask questions on like the Knot, so perfect example, there are forums that are designed for brides to talk to other brides. And somebody wrote, I wanted an experience with an interfaith wedding. My fiance is Catholic, but I'm Jewish, so we wanted a priest and a rabbi. Anybody have experience with that? The best answers came from a rabbi who does these things, right? Who's a vendor for them, saying, he didn't sell, but I watched what he was saying. He was saying, this is how it would go. I don't know if I'm in your area. I'm certainly happy to fly out, but I'm, 3 states away. But this is how it would go. And walk through, and we've had experience doing this. These are the pain points you're going to... It was wonderful content. It was a wonderful conversation, right? Anybody who went to that page then, on the Knot, who wanted to know about an interfaith wedding, saw this guy as an expert. And if he was in their market, guess who you're going to hire? Because nobody else was there. Everybody else was in where they're paid things, where you swipe through to see Rabbi number 1, Rabbi number 2, Rabbi number, He was there, right where their question was. There've got to be places for every business where your customers are, right? Where they live, what their interests are. If not, find out what they are. right? Engage them there. Again, back to real estate. Real estate is actually very good at being involved in local community efforts. So they sponsor Little League teams, things like that. And they go to all these like local events that would just drive me nuts. But they do that, not to sell, but to listen. What are the needs? And then they figure out how to adapt their own pitches to that. So I think the bigger problem is not where are the customers, but what customers you're trying to obtain, because there are tons of places where they congregate. Other questions? I was that good? That's impossible.
Nobody has a challenge getting more customers, keeping customers? Or do you like spending a lot of money, low cost ways? This is your time to talk to him.
Yeah.
He's leaving here in 30 minutes. Give him
All right,
some.
Yes, yes.
I have a question. So I've had my business for about 18 months now, and I'm kind of throwing things at the wall.
What kind of business is
I
it?
have hospitality and coaching
Okay.
and consulting company. And it's done really well. I've been very fortunate. But I need to have a targeted funnel, and I don't even know what that means.
Okay, I'm so glad that you asked this question and I've started throwing things at the wall, because that's what so many people do, and that's a waste of time and effort.
But it's stuck. But now what?
Right, it's stuff. So, what we don't do enough of is analyze, right? We see what works, but then don't find the strings about why they work. And what I would do is, once you throw everything on the wall and you see what's stuck, you just continue with what's stuck. You stop throwing, right? If you have a plan, now, you didn't seem to have a plan before, right? You just said we're going to try everything, right? Now's the time to figure out what worked and how do I put a strategic plan together to maximize that. Because what a lot of people forget, particularly when it comes to customers, is you don't need more customers necessarily, and they forget this about marketing all the time. You can be very comfortable with the same number of customers you have, as long as the revenue you're generating per customer goes up, right? Because again, that's the easiest way to get revenue, right, from the people you already have. So whatever worked, focus on the customers that you got from that and try to increase yield, right? Whatever worked in getting those new customers, try to figure out what it was about that approach that worked for you and try to do it bigger and more, or more targeted. I know you say you succeeded by throwing up a lot of ads at the wall. You can't disprove a negative. Think about what if you had a more focused target early on. Would you have had similar success, less success, more success? It's tough to figure that out. Then you're doing very well. Then why the hell are you listening to me? And you should be up here telling me. No, it's you have these. I think in just hearing where you're going, you've had success metrics that you can build off of. Just do more of those. We don't analyze. Nobody analyzes enough. Like we think we know why things work, but we never actually sit down to say why was that, right? And I think part of it is that we don't keep data in the beginning. We're not looking at it. If you're trying to analyze something, you're going to set out to analyze it before you do it, because it's very hard to figure out what happened in the end. Also, we all know that success is a lot of preparation. It's a lot of perspiration. It's also a lot of luck, right? And we have trouble defining sometimes. We put ourselves in the right position, but it's like fishing sometimes. You can have the right bait, the right lure, be it a well-stocked pond, and still not get a fish everywhere. Right? You've got to get that fish to bite. What I would suggest to you is figure out if you can quantify what that approach was in some way. Just do it more and build on it. Don't be afraid of success either. And I know that that's funny to say, but a lot of people say, well, this worked, so I really don't know why, and I'm not sure if I want to try that again, because if it works, keep doing it. Keep doing, it's the opposite of what Warren Buffett said about when you're in a hole, stop digging. If you're not in a hole, just keep climbing, I mean, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Yes? Oh, yeah.
There's you mentioned that with the grocery store analogy, back in the day, we all could see and physically interact with our customers. For those of us who have businesses that are at least all or partially e-commerce space, how would be some tips on finding who our customers are and targeting them?
So I'm amazed at how bad customer service is in a digital world, right? Because it's automated in many cases. And so if somebody has a problem with your product or service, chances are they'll email support or they'll tweet it and they'll get an auto reply back because we decided that the best thing in the world to do is to not leave that person hanging. And so we say, we will get back to you when we have time, right? Well, what's the opposite of that? We don't have time for you now and your complaint, right? I think that if you're serious and you have a lot of customer feedback, you need to be spending money on people. People who can interact with your customers. Because I've had two experiences, I'll share with you two experiences with large brands. One was Sears. Okay, I had a hot water heater in my house, burst. Was only 3 years old, under warranty, called up. Everything was, oh yeah, we're gonna bring it back, we'll get you a new one, we'll have it within 2 days. 3 weeks later, still had a broken hot water heater. 3 weeks. And about 10 auto reply emails. And Twitter conversations that would make longshoremen blush. They finally did it. The problem was there was nobody who cared about me on the other end. There was every time I had to reach out to them again, they didn't know who I was. Please tell me everything again. I just kept telling the story over and over and over again. I finally cut and paste something that I could email back to them, right? 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and by the way, $10,000 worth of water damage in my basement. 3 weeks, okay? No one saw an urgency in even understanding what the problem that I had and trying to fix it. Big problem. Let's go to JetBlue, okay? I'm a Mosaic customer at JetBlue, okay? It's my one little, I fly a lot. I like it. It costs them nothing, really. They let me board first. They let me change flights without a fee. They let me save the 25 bucks on my bag. And lastly, they know my name when I get on the plane. When I get on the plane, somebody says, "Hi, Mr. Hennessey, how are you?" This isn't first class, this is just JetBlue Mosaic. Their flight attendants know the Mosaic members. Okay, yeah. They do it. I've always loved that. A few weeks ago, I was flying out, and I printed out my boarding pass at home. The little Mosaic logo wasn't on the boarding pass. I called them up. They said, "Oh, Mr. Hennessey, you get your own little private line. It's great." They make you feel like they said, "Don't worry, we're going to cancel that ticket out and just rebook." Okay? Cancel the ticket out. When I went to rebook, they'd give my seat on the flight. No seat on the flight. Called back. I said, "This is crazy." I said, "You just told me. I just did what you told me to do." And they said, "Oh, we're really sorry. We don't have the seat." I said, "What do you mean you don't have the seat? I was just on there. I just did what you said, I really went a little nuts. And they said, "We'll get right back to you." Okay? Hang up the phone. I'm like, "Great. This is wonderful. I'm going to wait all day for something." 3 minutes later, in fact, it's probably too much information. I figured, okay, they're going to call me back. I'll run to the bathroom now, right? Finally get in there, phone rings. I'm like, this can't be them. Come back. "Mr. Hennessey, this is blah, blah, blah. I'm the unit supervisor for this. We really care about what happened. This is very horrible. Here's what we're going to do. We're actually trying to get your seat back from the person because we never should have booked that seat. Okay? And if not, we will book you on another airline to where I was going to Austin. Book you on another airline to Austin if we can't do it." And I said, "Oh, you're so sweet." Right? Well, I won't fly anywhere else. I just had to fly to DC from Newark, right? I flew to Boston to get to DC because I wanted to fly JetBlue. Why? Because the customer service process was part of the marketing. Because they knew my name, they knew my problem, they understood it, they didn't fight with me, everything was great, right? You may say that's hard to do because you'll have a lot of customers, you can't deal with them all and everything, but you shouldn't be in business if you don't know all your customers. You don't have to know them by name, but you have to know their situation. You have to know their needs, right? So your customer service response should be easy, because you know where they're coming from. But how many companies do that? Right? Yeah, very small. So what's the competitive advantage for you when you do it? And when you think about spending money down the line, right? It's a money well spent to spend money on customer service. Because I'm here telling all of you to fly JetBlue, right? And so are you, because they're your client.
Yeah.
And again, what is that really, in the end, what does being nice cost you? Right? What is talking to somebody by their name cost you? Right? Nothing. Saying hello to them, being pleasant, costs you nothing. And it builds you a customer, and they'll go out and they'll evangelize and tell your story too. Yeah.
You were talking about LinkedIn before
Yeah.
and using it as for the recommendations.
Right.
So if you've got a company, I always thought of LinkedIn as like for your personal looking for a job. Apparently it's much more than...
No, it's good for that, but I have a pet peeve. Don't reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're only looking to get a job. If I haven't heard from you in 2 years, I hate that. Hi, Ray, hope you're well. I haven't talked to you in 3 years. I'm out of work, right? Right. It can be a very powerful tool in a couple of ways. One is just networking with customers. LinkedIn now lets you tell your own story. You can write on LinkedIn and that platform and share that content with people who are with you. In a lot of ways, LinkedIn is a partner to us on Entrepreneur, but they're also a competitor because there's a lot of great storytelling that they should be doing on my site that they're doing there. And the referral system is great. What I do, this isn't a networking conversation, but networking and marketing go hand in hand. Every week, on Tuesdays and Fridays, I take 2 people who I'm linked with who don't know each other, and I introduce them. No agenda, but that's all I do. So, and I say, Marty, you should know Joe. I noticed you guys weren't linked together. I think your businesses are complementary. Figured you should meet. No agenda. Hope the intro is profitable for you. And I do it as part of my routine every week. And because down the line, I may need something. I may need a connection. It may help them. You know, these connections, Rolodexes are useless if you don't share them, right? With customers, it's the same thing. I often wonder why more businesses don't put their own customers together, right? You all sell to the same people, right? And they could probably do business with each other. That puts you in a very powerful role as a networker. So, you know, again, say you're, again, back to the worst analogy in the world, a hamburger restaurant, but say I know just a lot of fat guys who like hamburgers, right? And I say, Joe, you're a fat guy who likes hamburgers. Mike's a fat guy who likes hamburgers too. Maybe you have more things in common. Here's the connection, right? That's brand loyalty because you're doing something for them, right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The question I have is, what do you advise us on? I think one fear, the reason people don't do that is because of price. Besides the fact that they think their customer's bad, they don't think it's inspiring. But I know many business owners say, well, I don't want other people to know the price I gave them, etc. Can you address that? You know, meaning I'm a photographer and I gave you $1, he charged 89 cents. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't be doing that, right? Because your prices should be close to whatever that gets, and there's always a reason that they're not. One may buy in bulk, the other one might not, right? I used to run a TV network, and we see this with agents all the time. Anytime 2 TV talent found out that they shared an agent and one had like a 0.5% lower rate, it was war. It was crazy, right? And I used to say, just be transparent, right? You can't be afraid of your own customers, right? And if anything, think about it. It's one thing to acquire customers, it's another thing to keep them, right? And companies don't do enough to try to keep them. They feel like just providing that service is what they have. But meanwhile, all your competitors are out there trying to figure out a way to grab them to you. So these little value adds, you can't be afraid of connecting and creating your own community of customers who have some loyalty. And so if it's a price issue, you figure it out, right? You can explain it away. You can talk about it. Also, be careful who you're connecting. You know, if that's going to be an issue for your business, if there's big price differential about a number of people, put customers together where that is, where it's close enough. Start there and start having this conversation. Yes?
Right, I started a business about a year ago, and it's growing.
but it's not growing in the niche that I was expecting it to grow, and all of my marketing energy is going into that niche. I've researched it, I'm showing my product to people in the industry, and it gets a lot of enthusiasm, but I'm not making any money there. I'm making money in the general market. So, everyone know the Microsoft story, a little company called Microsoft? Years ago, Bill Gates got approached, was doing some work for IBM, because Microsoft was started to make business software. Right? The IBM folks go to a meeting in Washington, say to Bill Gates, this is great, and we'll probably pay you just on bulk on it. You know what our biggest problem is? We need an operating system. And Bill Gates said, I don't make operating systems, I make business software. I'm not going to do that. And IBM said, you won't make us an operating system? He goes, no. I have a friend in Arizona who has a business that creates operating systems. I'll make an introduction. IBM goes, they meet with the guy, it's a disaster. The guy is, tough on them and everything. They come back in another conversation, again, on this, they said, we still don't have an operating system. Bill Gates is like, okay, I'll spend $10,000 to buy my friend's operating system. I'll recode it, it's called DOS. We'll just put MS in front of it. And I don't know how to price this, so why don't you just give me a license on every computer yourself? That's Microsoft. So by the way, the whole genius thing, it really doesn't, and I love it when people give a talk about like, stick to your business, stick to your core. No! Follow the money. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to listen to what your customers are saying. Okay? And start figuring out how you can shift a little more marketing into the general side of your business where the money's coming in. And I'm not saying give up on the smaller thing, but don't. Your customers are telling you something. So don't argue with them and tell them that really you're much better at this. Make yourself better at that. But I'm glad you asked that question because that Microsoft example is perfect. This was a guy who was turning down business and actually turned it down and got a second chance, right? So God loved it. Because most of us don't get a second chance, right? He got a second chance that made them the largest company in the world.
What did Paul Allen have to do with that?
They were all like programming together. They had the original team of like 12, 13 people. And all they were doing was what became Excel and Word and all those other applications. They never wanted an operating system. In fact, if you remember, they were so bad at operating systems that they stole Apple's to create Windows. Right? And Steve Jobs never forgave Gates for that. Right? They just didn't, that wasn't their core. They really were, we're going to create all these other things. Meanwhile, they made all their money on those licensing fees. And he turned it down. Turned it down originally. Don't turn down the money. It's a bad thing in business. This is MBA 101. When the money's there, take it. Yes?
Yeah, in my experiences, I've actually come to draw a dividing line between sales and marketing, or lead generation and general marketing. Is that a healthy perspective? I'm just wondering.
It depends on who you ask. I mean, we talk about sales and marketing in the same breath, but they are different, right? But in the end, they share the same kernel of just how you're telling your story. Again, like I started, it's like, your lead generation is segmented even from marketing and sales now in some places, and we've got all these different categories of things. To me, it's all the same, right? You're going out there. The difference is that you actually have to close the sale. So the marketing is getting your product in front of everybody, and you may have a different approach to closing that sale, and it's real. But I don't see the differentiation that much. It depends sometimes on the business and the scale that you have. Like if you run a major corporation, you probably want a different marketing staff and a different sales staff working together. But I know my own experiences with businesses I've run, it's like put them all together and let them work together. Marketing in a lot of ways is sales support in some places, so it just depends.
I have about 10 more minutes. Anybody else?
Yes.
So I'm in a startup. So what are kind of like, before I don't have like too much information on what's working for me or what's not, and obviously I want to keep costs as low as possible. So what are some other like techniques or other methods to go ahead and get attention other than like focusing just like on the customer?
So a couple of things for startups. an underused, I don't know where you house your company, right? I don't know if it's in your home. How many people run their businesses out of their homes? Okay. Can I make a suggestion? There are, and I'm a little biased here because Entrepreneur invested in one of these last year. There are tons of co-working spaces. I'm not talking about the big WeWorks. I'm not talking about the Reguses. There are specialized, smaller, local co-working spaces all throughout the city, all throughout the area, in every market in the country. They don't cost a lot to join and work out of. Here's the advantage that you get. Events, networking events built in. So we own, we're part owners of this place called Alley NYC on 7th Avenue. Every Wednesday is happy hour, where companies can just get up and tell their story to each other, right? You say, well, what's the benefit of that? Well, I've seen deals happen among the companies there. I think one of the things we have to fight as like solopreneurs, as people who are sort of on our own, working out of our house, I think we have to fight not only distraction, but lack of interaction with people who can help us. So I always tell people, if they're looking to really break out, there's no better way to make a name for yourself than instantly, renting in one of these communities, because then suddenly you've got 200, 300 other companies who know who you are. They'll do business with you in a lot of ways because you're there with them. One of the great things I like about Alley, and this is not a sales pitch for Alley, is that the experience level of the entrepreneurs there is so wide. We have people who are on their 5th, 6th company, and people who are just starting out of college with their new business. And some, people have experience getting funding. People have experience getting, customers. We also there, and all the places do it, give kind of continuing education, like workshops constantly. Here's a legal boot camp. I just did a marketing thing there not too long ago, and there was a group of Israeli startups that came over that was there, and we did a whole thing about getting press attention for the company. That's part of you being there. So I've always thought that it's easy to stay home, like sitting there in your pajamas, typing out things and all that. But it's better to be in the work world and get the energy and their experience there. And in a lot of ways, what I found, and this goes back to the marketing discussion, it's fascinating to see the companies band together with resources to try to get more bang for their buck. So if you're in the tech business, there's the New York Tech Meetup that's here, which was really just founded by a bunch of tech CEOs who wanted to get drinks together. Now it's this huge event that goes on way too long, and happens, I think, every month or every other month. It's a great marketing thing for yourself. You get your name out there. People really want to know what you do, and there you see the personal thing where I may not know your business, but because I've been through this, I know 3 people who might be able to help, and you let them make those introductions. So don't be isolated, right? And I know it's hard because we believe in ourselves, right? We know we can do this on our own, but you can't, right? So find those resources where you can still have your own personal identity, but interact with companies too. Yes?
You mentioned about how people use Twitter not so great.
Yes.
Could you tell us a couple of ways to use it effectively?
Yeah, so I always, 2 things. Your Twitter handle has to reflect something that targets your customer base. So I mentioned the realtor in Florida, right? She ended up changing it to LI to Palm Beach, at LI to Palm Beach, right? Which is what her market was. So it's simple. The most powerful words in your Twitter description are follow me for, right? Tell people why they should care about you. The first words in your, description shouldn't be husband, gun collector, lover of puppies, right? It should be follow me for. And then what is it that you do? Then all the content that you have there should be focused on living up to the promises you made in your Twitter handle and in your description. Okay, so no kittens, although they're cute. By the way, you can have that down the line, but not in the beginning. Because in the beginning, people don't want to think that you're just, the crazy cat lady because you see 5 beautiful kittens and then you say, and by the way, we sell, the whole sporting goods, right? Which happens. It's crazy. I see a lot of, you should see what I see. That's the minimum. And then by the way, I said it was cheap, it was free, all this marketing. I didn't say it was easy. Content marketing is a commitment. You want to write stories, you want to keep a blog, you got to feed that every day, and then down the line it pays off. Okay? How many people like classical music? Okay? There was a great study done about 10 years ago. Of all the major composers, okay, they did not get their most popular symphony at the time. Okay, the most popular symphony came on average in year 9 of their life. Year 9. That's the way it is with everything we do. You can't just start writing a blog and say, well, nobody's reading it and give up. Because what you're forgetting is that 3 or 4 years down the line, you may have critical mass and content where Google starts noticing you, where publications start looking at you because of the advice that you're giving. But it's a commitment in time. It's a commitment in effort. Same thing with social media. We think it's easy, right? Oh, it's only 140 characters. What could go wrong, right? It's constant. Because you know what I hate to see? Somebody tweets something and then I don't hear from them 3 or 4. Because if I'm following you for a reason. I want to see what it is that you're telling me. And you want to give people a reason to do that. You don't want to disappear. The other thing is engage with people. Don't sell to them, but engage with people. If Twitter's great where, I'll see something and I'll share it. Direct message people through Twitter. It's a great way to communicate with them. But it's not your marketing, right? That's not it. Your marketing is you. It's your story. It's how you're connecting with people. And use it to try to connect and meet people. I can't say it enough. We focus so much on Twitter and the digital world, and I'm a digital native guy myself and all these other things. Write a note. Buy some stationery. Write a note. A little handwritten note. Thank you. Or just checking in. And know them. I'll end with this story. I love stories. And this one's embarrassing, but I'll tell it anyway. When I was running Smart Money Interactive, we were on 57th Street, and we were right near a bar called Kennedy's. And Kennedy's had a 71-year-old bartender from Ireland named Maurice O'Connell, who was a kindly old man with big, bushy eyebrows. And Maurice was very nice. I would go in there from time to time. Then I started going there more regularly because I would have meetings there, to the point where they started referring to the place as Ray's office. That's left Smart Money, went to a new job. Didn't go there. One day my office phone rings, secretary picks it up. I had left my previous job. And she said, there's an old Irish man on the phone. I said, is he an uncle or what? Pick it up. He says, it's Maurice O'Connell. He said, I wanted to make sure you were in good health. I said, I am. I'm fine. He said, well, I haven't seen you in quite a few months. And I'm thinking, that's so nice, he cares about me. Wait a minute! He misses my tips, too! But my first reaction was, this was a guy who picked up a telephone, tracked me down, and his intro wasn't, come buy beer. His intro was, I'm hoping you're in good health. So what did I do that night? Went to buy beer. I started contributing to my declining health that very night. But think about that. What did it cost him? Nothing. So don't buy anything. Just do differently. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, warm round of